Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for White and White Sense, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 30th of May 2025. To be honest, I'm not quite sure where May has gone. I can't believe it's June next week, but we're already looking forward to the next newsletter. We've had a couple of member questions come in, which we're going to make into newsletter articles. The first one is about where you can park with your blue badge for how long. And the second is about car tax and how as a blind person you can get relief not to pay car tax. So if you do ever have any questions, never hesitate to ask them. We're always happy to research the answers for you if we don't know it immediately. I'm also delighted to report that we have been offered a charity stand at the Isle of Wight Festival again this year. So if anybody is going to the festival, pop along and say hello. Thank you. Lisa, CEO, Site for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news, the 30th of May 2025.
Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15pm and 2pm. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you will be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
There is no yoga this week, but resumes next Tuesday as normal. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday starting at 10am until 11:30am. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
Now the warmer and hopefully sunnier weather is coming, our tandem bikes are now out and about. If you would like to book a session, please call the office and a slot can be booked with the pilots.
Our next walk and talk is on Friday the 13th of June this month. The walk is from Shanklin Esplanade to Brown's Golf Course, Yaverland. For more details, please call the office.
On June, Eye on Social is advertised in our newsletter as Northcote Manor on June the 11th. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, this has been cancelled and now we'll be meeting for lunch on June the 18th at the Crown in Shorewell at 12pm. If you would like to join us, please call the office and put your name down on the list.
We are pleased to announce several new dates for upcoming summer events. We have once again been invited to the RVYC on Saturday the 12th of July to take part in their annual Disabilities Sailing Day. All members who have attended before all have thoroughly enjoyed themselves. Numbers are limited, but if oversubscribed, a ballot will take place for the allocated spaces. Please call the office if you are interested.
Another activity on the sea is a trip on wet wheels. This chartered boat will take members out into the Solent for a 90-minute trip. The dates are the 11th of August and the 1st of September. The cost is £8 per person, but once again numbers are limited, so a ballot will have to be held if oversubscribed. Please call the office if you are interested.
If you sometimes wish you had a friend to talk to and feel isolated from the outside world, our telephone befrienders are on hand to call you for a friendly chat. The calls can be weekly, fortnightly or monthly and can be tailored around your needs. If you would like to receive a telephone call, please call the office and we will match you with a befriender.
Our monthly 100 Club has spare balls available. If anyone would like to buy a ball, it is £2 per month or £24 for the full year. The more balls in the draw, the higher the prize money each month. If you would like to take part in our monthly draw, please call the office. This is part of our fundraising activities.
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Isle of Wight Shipyard builds UK's first eco-sightseeing jet boat for the River Thames. A Cowes shipyard has launched a UK first with the construction of an eco-friendly sightseeing jet boat, which is now operating on the River Thames. Built by Diverse Marine and designed by Chartwell Marine, the 16-metre Rocket Rebel is the UK's first eco sightseeing jet boat for commercial passenger use. It has been commissioned by Thames Rockets as part of a drive to cut emissions and modernise river tourism ahead of London Rivers Week 2025. Capable of carrying 26 passengers at speed, the aluminium vessel is powered by twin jet engines using low-emission HVO biofuel. She is Tier 3 emissions compliant, cutting nitrogen oxide by 90% and producing up to 90% less CO2 compared to standard marine diesel. Ben Coleman, director at Cowes-based Diverse Marine, has said, "We are incredibly proud to see a vessel of this importance being built here on the Isle of Wight. It shows the world that Cowes continues to be a centre of excellence for marine innovation and high-performance boat building." The £1.6 million vessel marks a major milestone for both the River Thames and Isle of Wight shipbuilding, setting a new benchmark for sustainable sightseeing experiences in the UK and beyond. Diverse Marine is also involved in developing electric ferries, hybrid defence craft and offshore wind support vessels, reinforcing the Isle of Wight's position as a hub for clean maritime technology. This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Nearly 55,000 appointments and tests completed at new diagnostic centre. Since opening its doors 6 months ago, staff working in the new outpatient and community diagnostic centre at St Mary's Hospital have delivered almost 55,000 appointments and tests to support improved diagnostic care for islanders. That's 420 patients a day. The purpose-built centre has seen the introduction of several new pathways and services to benefit our island community, including DEXA, DEXA, bone density scanning, a children and young people's, that's CYP, asthma pathway, HRT bleeding and community cardiology pathways. The children and young people's asthma pathway, the only CYP pathway to be delivered within a diagnostic centre in the HIOW region, which is Hampshire and Isle of Wight region, now means GPs can refer young people with suspected asthma straight to a diagnostic test without having to wait for a consultation appointment. This means quicker diagnosis and helps to ensure young patients are given the right treatment first time. In 6 months, staff at the new centre have delivered 14,827 X-rays, 853 echocardiograms, 4,142 ultrasounds, 8,168 fracture appointments, and a further 18,289 diagnostic tests. The phlebotomy team have also carried out 20,899 blood tests. Jill, a sonographer who has worked at the Trust for 6 years, said, "This fantastic new environment has made a massive difference to us as staff, as it has given our patients that extra confidence that they are receiving the very best diagnostic care." As well as the introducing new pathways and services, the centre has seen an investment of £2.2 million into state-of-the-art equipment and further investment into the Trust's workforce. that includes 20 training posts to upskill staff. Chief Operating Officer Vicky Loughlin, Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said, "Our Trust's new outpatients and community diagnostic complex has helped us significantly improve the way we provide diagnostic care to our island community. We can provide even better care to patients, helping them to get a quicker diagnosis and lead healthier lives." Patient and visitor feedback has also been positive, with many commenting on feeling welcomed and supported by staff, as well as the new modern environment. Rowan, 12, from Carisbrook, who was joined by mum Marianne for his spirometry test to check his lung capacity as part of his ongoing asthma care, said, "Rowan's appointment went well. The centre is really spacious and feels so nice and modern." Roger, 82, from Cowes, also echoed Rowan and Marianne's thoughts. Having suffered from sleep apnea symptoms for years, was visiting the centre to be fitted with a monitor following a referral from his respiratory consultant as part of an ongoing treatment plan. Roger said, "We think the new space is brilliant and all the staff are really friendly and helpful." This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. Isle of Wight Hurst stores set for closure. Isle of Wight retailer W. Hurst & Son has announced that it will close 2 of its island branches, with the future of a third store also under threat. The popular retailer will shut its Ventnor and Freshwater branches, with the future of its Shanklin store also in limbo. It follows more than 165 years of trading, with diminishing footfall and evolving consumer habits thought to have been the catalyst for the closures. The branch closures will lead to a redundancy program for the many who are employed by the company. Shops in Ryde, Cowes and Newport are to remain open, while Hurst's Isle of Wight delivery service will also be retained. A spokesman for W. Hurst & Son, IW, that's Isle of Wight, said, "As a distinguished independent retailer, W. Hurst & Son, IW Limited, with its 166-year legacy on the Isle of Wight, announced a strategic realignment of our operations to ensure long-term sustainability amidst the shifting retail environment." Earlier this year, the company implemented a voluntary redundancy program. Subsequently, W. Hurst & Son has continued to experience downward pressure on sales and footfall, a trend that has persisted since the pandemic. Despite proactive and ongoing efforts to adapt to evolving consumer shopping habits, the business is facing significant challenges stemming from the convenience offered by multinational online retailers and increased local competition from national brands over the past decade. Rising operational costs, influenced by recent UK budgetary measures, further compound the difficulties for an independent retail business of Hurst & Son's size to maintain sustainability in the current economic climate, which is also impacted by global external factors and the broader UK economy. Following a comprehensive financial review, the company has made the difficult decision to announce the proposal to close the Ventnor and Freshwater branches, joining a growing number of retailers adapting to the current economic realities. W. Hurst & Son IW Limited expresses its deep appreciation for the years of support from the communities and loyal customers in both Ventnor and Freshwater. Trading will continue in these locations throughout the summer, with proposed final closures anticipated upon the sale of the properties. Regrettably, the proposed branch closures will necessitate a further redundancy programme. Additionally, W. Hurst & Son IW Limited is undertaking a thorough assessment of its Shanklin branch, which is now at risk of potential closure. The company is committed to exploring all possible avenues to maintain operations in Shanklin and will closely monitor performance and trading conditions before a final determination is made. We now begin a consultation process with our colleagues prior to any final decisions being made. W. Hurst & Son IW Limited takes pride in its rich heritage and its historical ability to adapt. The company remains dedicated to its core values while strategically evolving to meet the demands of the modern retail landscape in 2025. W. Hurst & Son IW Limited continues to offer an exceptionally broad and diverse product range within its retail footprint, providing competitive pricing and strong value to our customers. Customers continue to shop with confidence at W. Hurst & Son's remaining locations in Cowes, Ryde and Newport. It is with considerable sadness that W. Hurst & Son IW Limited acknowledges the impact of these decisions on its valued colleagues, many of whom have demonstrated remarkable long-term commitment to the company. The dedication and extensive product knowledge of the entire team have been instrumental in achieving positive service ratings, customer feedback, and awards. W. Hurst & Son IW Limited encourages local businesses with customer service-focused openings to consider these skilled individuals and welcomes reference requests if this proposal were to go ahead. Finally, W. Hurst & Son IW Limited extends its sincere gratitude to its colleagues, customers and local business partners for their unwavering support over the years. The company remains focused on strategic evolution and looks forward to continued support as it adapts for the future.
Good morning, everybody. This is the second part of the Talking News, read by Imelda
and Jerry. And we begin this morning with teen arrested over early morning golf club stabbing. A teenager, aged 14, has been arrested after a man was stabbed and left with a puncture wound and a golf club was broken into. Police were called to Brown's Golf Club in Sandown at around 3:40 a.m. on Wednesday after reports of a serious assault. Officers arrived to find a man in his 40s with a puncture injury to his back. The injury was described as serious but not life-challenging. Ambulance crews attended and took the man to hospital for treatment. Police said the assault involved 2 males and happened during an overnight break-in at the popular golf course on Culver Parade. Brown's Golf is owned by the Isle of Wight Council and has been leased by operator Paul Saville since summer 2023. While at the scene, officers searched the area and found items believed to have been stolen from the club. It was also discovered that the venue was an on-site caravan had been broken into. Thieves took several items, including at least 6 bottles of spirits and a cash register containing about £120 in cash. A 14-year-old boy from Newport was arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm with intent and burglary. He was taken into police custody and later released on conditional bail until August the 28th while inquiries continue. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary have launched an investigation into both the assault and the burglary. Forensic teams were at the scene on Wednesday morning. Posting on social media, Brown's Golf Course informed followers of the incident, stating, "Please bear with us all, we have had a break-in and lots of alcohol stolen, etc. Police are undertaking forensics, that's all I needed, but we will deal with it." Paul Saville told the county press the incident follows a difficult few years and he believes the break-in might have been premeditated. The break-in has led to an outpouring of support on social media. One commentator wrote, "You and your team have worked so hard, our thoughts and hearts are with you." Another added, "So sorry, you don't deserve this." The other suspect is being sought by the police.
New dawn as island train services renationalised. Island trade services are back in public ownership for the first time in decades as the government renationalisation of railways begins. South Western Railway (SWR), which runs Island Line, was previously owned by First Group and MTR Corporation, but is now the responsibility of DfT, Department for Transport operator. Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, who travelled on the first renationalised South West SWR departure from London Waterloo, said it was a new dawn for our railways. All other services run by private companies will be renationalised as contracts reach the end of their minimum terms. Britain's railway service was privatised in the mid-1990s. Speaking before boarding the 6:14 service to Shepperton, Surrey, last Sunday, Miss Alexander said, "Today marks a new dawn for our railways. Moving away from 30 years of inefficiency and delayed services and failing passengers and moving confidently into a new era, the era of Great British Railways." Office of Rail and Road ORR figures show the equivalent of 4% of services in Britain were cancelled in the year April the 26th. For SWR, the figure was 3%. Renationalised services will be integrated into Great British Railways, GBR, a new public sector body which will also oversee rail infrastructure. Legislation to enable the creation of GBR is expected to be introduced in Parliament later this year. GBR branding has been added to one SWR train. It features part of the Union symbol that is synonymously with Britain's railways and the words Great British Railways coming soon. More trains will be given the branding over the coming months and years. But the DfT said publicity-owned services will need to meet tough performance standards to be rebranded Great British Railways. The standards will cover factors such as punctuality, reliability, and the experience of passengers. The DfT said its renationalisation policy will save taxpayers up to £150 million per year in fees previously paid to private companies that ran services.
Tributes to Managing Director of Bus Company. Tributes are being paid to Managing Director of bus company Southern Vectus, Andrew Wickham, who has died after a long illness. In a statement, Southern Vectus described Andrew as a true champion of the transport industry and said his death has been met with deep sorrow amongst his colleagues. A devoted family man, Andrew dedicated his entire working life to the transport industry and remained at the helm of Southern Vectus' parent company, Go South Coast, until the very end. Andrew recently received an MBE, presented by Her Royal Highness the Royal Princess Royal, for services to the bus industry, with his career spanning almost 40 years. A statement reads, "His outstanding leadership drove forward the entire Go South Coast team, with colleagues at our operators across the region utterly dedicated to Andrew's vision to improve services and increase the popularity of bus travel. He achieved this and so much more during his tenure, with the number of people travelling by bus along the South Coast now amongst the highest in the UK. Originally graduating from Aston University in 1987 with a BSc Honours in Transport Operation and Planning, Andrew joined Brighton Borough Transport in 1986 while at university. He held various roles across the country, including at London General Transport Services and Plymouth City Bus. In 2011, he was appointed Managing Director of Go Ahead Group, owned by Go South Coast, consisting of Southern Vectus, Moorbus, Unibus, Blue Star, Unilink, Salisbury Reds, Swindon Bus Company, Demori, Tourist Coaches, Excelsior Coaches and Hanson Dorset Trim. Under Andrew's leadership, Go South Coast received many accolades, including Large Operator of the Year on numerous occasions. The statement continued, Andrew, who was also a Fellow of the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, leaves an outstanding legacy. The business is in a very strong position, with a successful team which has worked alongside him for many years, committed to ensuring Go South Coast remains one of the strongest bus operators in the UK, now and for many years to come. Ben Murray, Finance Director, has been made Interim Managing Director at Go South Coast.
Last chance for a prolific shoplifter who owes £8,000. A prolific shoplifter who already owes £8,000 in unpaid court fees narrowly avoided jail after weeping in the dock. Kevin Greenwood of West Street, Ryde, appeared before Isle of Wight magistrates on Friday, May the 23rd. The 45-year-old admitted theft from a person and 2 counts of theft from a shop in Ryde and East Cowes between April the 20th last year and January the 1st. Prosecutor Lauren McNell said Greenwood entered the co-op in East Cowes at around 9:15 p.m. He placed various items, including alcohol, in a trolley and left without paying, and the items taken were worth around £124. On December the 30th, he took a 10-pack of Budweiser beers, valued at £11.50, from the co-op in Ryde. On New Year's Day, Greenwood entered the Black Sheep Public House in Ryde at around 7 p.m. Miss McConnell said he stole a Ted Baker jacket hanging on a peg, which belonged to one of the bar workers. He was caught on CCTV, and the jacket had sentimental value to its victim. In a statement read out in court, The victim revealed how he had the jacket since he was 13 years old, almost died wearing the jacket, and left the hospital with the jacket. Miss McConnell said it was valued at around £250 and contained house keys and some Apple AirPods, which were later retrieved. Oscar Vincent, defending, said Greenwood had to survive until recently on a low rate of universal credit. The offices occupied out of financial necessity, but he was now in settled accommodation and able to manage his finances. Mr. Vincent said another period in custody would cause him to lose his accommodation again. Magistrates told Greenwood they were seriously considering sending him to prison and described his criminal record as prolific. Invited to speak, a tearful Greenwood told the bench he had been institutionalised all his life, needed help, and was struggling with his mental health. He said he was close to finally getting a council house, a forever home. Greenwood, who has 156 previous convictions and already owes more than £8,000 in unpaid court fees, was handed a 10-week jail term, suspended for 12 months to include 15 rehabilitation days. The presiding magistrate told Greenwood, "This is your last chance to get your life in order." Greenwood must pay £260 compensation.
Ireland MPs unite in pledge to work with Council Chief. Both of the Isle of Wight MPs have pledged to continue working with the Council leader Phil Jordan, despite only one of them choosing to re-elect him in a knife-edge vote. Isle of Wight East MP Joe Robertson, Conservative, and Isle of Wight West Richard Quigley MP for Labour issued statements after the head of the Alliance Group narrowly won a leadership vote against Conservative challenger Councillor Ed Blake. Last Wednesday's full council meeting saw councillors approved a new committee system, constitution for County Hall, and an 18-18 tied vote between Councillor Blake and Councillor Jordan. As Bembridge's County Hall representative, Mr Robertson voted for the Conservatives group leader, while Richard Quigley, the councillor for Cowes North, backed the incumbent. The tied result was resolved through a casting vote by the council's newly elected chair, Councillor Ian Dorr, which secured Councillor Jordan's leadership for the next 12 months. Mr Robertson said, "Congratulations to Phil Jordan on being re-elected as council leader. I will continue to work with him on the big issues affecting Islanders." When Phil says he wants to finish the job on a devolved mayor, that must include negotiating our red lines, starting with no deal without mayoral powers over the ferries. When I met with the Minister last week, Jim McMahon, Minister for Local Government and English Devolution, he said his department was open to it, but our council must make the case. Mr Quigley says, "I am pleased to see Phil re-elected as leader of the Isle of Wight Council, especially as we work towards devolution. Phil is best placed to ensure we get the right deal for the island. He fully understands the positive opportunities devolution will bring for islanders, and I look forward to continuing to work with him as leader and with the council to make sure the island is best served."
Fury over floating bridge, £1 million losses. The floating bridge is losing £1 million a year and nothing's happening, an exasperated Isle of Wight councillor bemoaned this week. East Cowes councillor Carl Love sought answers over a replacement of the troubled East Cowes chain ferry, which County Hall's cabinet agreed to replace in March last year. In November, the council's former chair said he was absolutely furious about the handling of the replacement process and urged the authority to get on and build it rather than carrying out consultation work. Councillor Love told the Chamber of Full Council on Wednesday, 14 months ago, this council agreed to start a process of replacing the floating bridge. And here we are, 14 months later, not so much as a nut, screw or nail has been purchased to replace that floating bridge. And it's reported that the floating bridge in operations is losing at least £1 million per year, and it's not being discussed. What are we doing to mitigate against these losses? What actions are we going to take? When are we actually going to start the process of replacing it physically, not keep talking about it? And how much money have we spent on that process of talking about it? Council leader Phil Jordans declined to answer Councillor Love's questions, responding, "It doesn't fall under the remit that I have. There is a committee with a chair that has the floating bridge as part of its authority and oversight." Councillor Julie Jones-Edwards, the new chair of the Economy, Regeneration, Transport and Infrastructure Committee, said, "There is a report coming to the new committee in July. I did call you a couple of days ago, Councillor Love, to say that I would update you as soon as I have any more news. I haven't had any update myself regarding the situation. I've got my first meeting with Officer Councillor Ward and I next week for agenda setting, and presumably there is going to be some form of briefing for all members, or definitely the committee members and local members. I haven't got much to say regarding the historic element, as I wasn't directly involved."
Confusion over road disruption. A lack of consultation and pre-warning for a set of road closures near Wootton Bridge has left residents chasing different companies for an answers, as Isle of Wight councillor has said. Councillor Sarah Redrup, the Liberal Democrat representative for Wootton Bridge, pointed to widespread confusion amongst locals over the bank holiday weekend, with closure signage on Lushington Hill changed overnight without explanation. There are closures expected on Lushington Hill, Bridlesford Road, Alveston Road, Brox Copse Road and Combley Road next month. Alveston Road and Brock Copse Road are scheduled to be closed at some point between June the 2nd and June the 13th for crack sealing. The closures are required to allow Island Roads to reconstruct the footway and or carriageway, along with any related drainage and preparation works. Lushington Hill will be closed between June the 5th and June the 6th to enable Scottish and Southern Electricity Networks, SSEN, repairs. Bridlesford Road is set to be closed until June the 16th, as enforced by Southern Gas Network, SGN. The closure is for engineers to replace gas pipes. Routine maintenance works by Island Roads will mean Combley Road is shut between June the 4th and the 6th. The 5 closures follow 2 months of work on the nearby Park Road, which was extended by an extra 2 weeks. Park Road did not initially open as planned on Saturday, causing further traffic disruption. After an outcry from residents and Councillor Redrup, it opened late on Sunday morning. She told the press, "Unfortunately, the situation has been disappointing. Residents and businesses should be part of the conversation when this sort of work is planned, and at the very least they deserve clear, timely information." Over the bank holiday weekend, there was widespread confusion, especially when signage was changed overnight without explanation. With multiple contractors involved, people were left chasing different companies for answers. That's simply not acceptable. Councillor Redrup added that transparency and proactive communication should be non-negotiable. Speed
plea after birds run over. A woman has called for the speed limit to reduced after 2 ducklings were run over by a boating lake. Denise Wheeler, a dog psychologist and former veterinary nurse, has called for signs to be erected by the lake and for the speed limit to be reduced to 10 miles per hour. Canoe Lake Road in Ryde is currently 20 miles per hour and has speed bumps. Denise said her friend witnessed 2 ducklings being run over by a speeding car, which led to one of them dying and the other being seriously injured. Denise then spoke to dog walkers, who said they don't go on that side of the lake because they find it too upsetting, and took matters into her own hands by telling several motorists to slow down. Denise says, "I was just shocked, so I said, 'I'm not having this. This is appalling.' I couldn't believe it. He just came roaring down and just carried on." Denise is now advocating for additional restrictions around the boating lake to protect the wildlife, calling both Island Roads and Isle of Wight Council on the subject. She said, "I want them to put up a sign and take the speed restriction down to 10 miles per hour from one side to the other, signs to say the birds are crossing." Denise added that a barrier, like on the north side of the lake, would also be appropriate. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said, "We are working to find suitable locations and signage to place some advisory warnings. Meanwhile, the roads around the boating lake are 20 miles per hour and have traffic calming measures. We would remind all traffic users to drive safely, sensibly and responsibly to protect other road users and wildlife." Island Roads said they had explained to Denise the process that needs to be followed to get new warning signs erected and that it would not be immediate.
Man hit passerby who commented on disabled girlfriend. A man who kicked the legs out from under another man after he made a vile comment about his girlfriend following a fight has been sentenced. Christopher Dickinson of Pelhurst Road, Ryde, appeared before Isle of Wight magistrates. At a previous hearing in March, the 30-year-old admitted assault by beating and possession of cannabis in Ventnor and Newport on September the 26th last year. Prosecutor Lauren McConnell said Dickinson was part of a group comprising himself, another male and 2 females. She said the group were waiting at a bus stop in Ventnor and Dickinson's soon-to-be victim walked past. The court heard there was an altercation between the 2 parties and a fight broke out. Miss McConnell and Dickinson followed the man who made a comment about his girlfriend and then kicked his legs out from under him, attacking him from behind. She said the victim, who did not support the prosecution, had a pre-existing injury and already had pins in one leg, thought it was broken and the kick caused a refracture. Dickinson left the scene before police arrived, and when he was found and arrested, a small sachet of white powder, later determined to be cocaine, was found in his wallet, court heard. He told police he kicked his victim out of frustration after he made comments about his girlfriend's disability. Oscar Vincent, defending, said it had been almost 13 years since Dickinson's last offence against a person. He said the evening passed without incident, but during a chance meeting between 2 groups, his victim made a deeply offensive comment about Dickinson's girlfriend, who is registered disabled and has cerebral palsy. Mr. Vincent said it caused significant upset for Dickinson and his partner, and the former did what he did in the manner described, unaware his victim had a pre-existing injury. Dickinson, who had 5 previous convictions for 6 offences, was handed an 18-month community order to include 20 rehabilitation days and a 90-day alcohol abstinence requirement. He was also ordered to pay costs of £85 and a £114 surcharge.
12-year prison term for rapist. A rapist who carried out more than a dozen non-recent child sex abuse offences and told victims to keep the abuse our little secret has been jailed. Ryan Phillips, 24, of Melville Street, Sandown, was charged with 6 counts of causing or inciting a child to engage in sexual activity, 6 counts of raping a child, sexual assault on a child, sexual assault on a child by penetration, and engaging in sexual activities in the presence of a child. The charges all related to dates between 2011 and 2017. Phillips was under the age of 18 when the offences occurred. The abuse was first reported to police in July 2022 before a lengthy investigation was commenced by the Child Abuse Investigation Team, CAIT. During the abuse, Phillips tried to stop the victims telling anyone by claiming they would get into trouble if they did, and that the abuse should remain our little secret. He denied all of the charges, and the case went to trial at Portsmouth Crown Court on February the 17th this year. On March the 13th, he was found guilty of all 15 accounts by the jury. Appearing at the same court for sentencing, he was jailed for 12 years and placed on indefinite sexual harm prevention order. Passing sentence, His Honour Judge Melville commented on the disastrous effect the offences had on the victims and that may never recover. Detective Sergeant Ian Robertson from the Isle of Wight CAIT team said, "Reporting abuse of this nature takes on an incredible amount of courage, and all of the victims in this case have shown throughout this investigation and the subsequent court process. The abuse they suffered at the hands of Phillips was horrific, and through their collective bravery they have ensured he has been brought to justice. Anyone affected by child abuse should contact police on 101, where you can speak to an officer in confidence. The Hampshire Trust Independent Sexual Violence Advisor, ISVA, service also provides specialist support to victims and survivors. Alternatively, contact Childline on 0800 1111, or if you are an adult, you could call the NSPCC on 0808 800 5000.
Rescue Cat's latest arrival at Sanctuary. The Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary has a new arrival, a rescued 9-year-old female serval. Isaac is a former pet who was confiscated from her previous owner and was welcomed at the attraction yesterday, Thursday. The attraction hoped to introduce her to their male serval, Xyrus. The serval came to the sanctuary through Rescue Partners Animal Advocacy Protection, AAP. A Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary spokesperson said, "Thank you to Ventura Wildlife Services for transporting Isaac via road from AAP Pramaduras in Spain to our sanctuary on the Isle of Wight, and to Whitelink for providing a crossing over the Solent. We hope to share more updates soon." Meanwhile, 2 inhumanely treated bears are due to arrive at the sanctuary in June. Benji and Balu have been rescued from Azerbaijan and will be given the life they deserve at the Sandown Sanctuary after years of abuse. Their transport has been sponsored by Cargaloo, with the brothers due to take a 6-hour flight before arriving on the island. Lawrence Bates, Sanctuary CEO, expressed his thanks to Cargaloo and said the project may never have come to fruition without them.
Bereaved dads find bond in football. A new football team has launched on the island with a purpose that goes far beyond the pitch. Sands United Isle of Wight is a unique team made up of dads and family members who have experienced the heartbreaking of losing a baby or child. More than just a football team, it offers a space for support, understanding and friendship among people who understand what it means to grieve such a loss. The team is managed by Kieran Wildman, 25, who lost his son, Arlo Isaac, in 2023. Motivated by his own journey, Kieran wanted to create a space where others who had suffered similar loss could come together, both to play football and to support each other. The team has had a really positive response, said Kieran. Now there's somewhere set up for people to come, and where it's to play, talk, or just around others, we get it. Everyone is welcome. Sands United Isle of Wight is part of the wider Sands United Football Network, an initiative supported by Sands, a national child stillbirth and neonatal death charity. Sands provides crucial bereavement support and raises awareness, helping families across the UK through unimaginable loss. Currently, the island team has 11 members and is already gaining momentum. The first training session is scheduled for next week at Seaclose Park in Newport, where participants can play and also find the opportunity to talk openly. Several local teams have already reached out to arrange matches, and there are plans to secure a more permanent home ground. In the meantime, the team is encouraging everyone interested to get involved, whether by playing, helping to set up goals, or just offering support. The Sands United FC Isle of Wight Facebook page has been created to share updates and connect with the community. Donations can also be made via the Sands website, supporting both the team and the broader view of the charity.
Houses planned for Esplanade site. A pair of traditional style semi-detached houses could be built on a piece of land on Ventnor Esplanade, which has lain empty for decades. Mark Lilly has submitted a planning application for a new residential scheme at the Lava Nest site. Each of the proposed 4-storey homes would have 4 bedrooms and a garage. A planning and heritage statement written by Rainey Petrie Architecture on behalf of Mr Lilly says, the proposals are for a pair of semi-detached dwellings with integral garages and off-street parking. The building is stepped back across the upper floors to reflect the profile of buildings either side of the site, which is a general feature along this stretch of the esplanade. This stepping of the buildings helps to avoid compromising the privacy of properties either side whilst trying to preserve the views. The site has planning consent, and it was gained in November 2022 for 4 2-bed flats and 1 3-bed flat. The statement continues, development has remained on hold, largely attributed to the complex retaining wall requirements, the amount of excavation works and number of landslip events that have recently occurred in Ventnor. Public consultation on the new proposal 25/00694/FUL finishes on June the 20th.
Debut title for teen snooker sensation. A 13-year-old from Yarmouth has won his first snooker title. Noah Gartel was victorious in the Q-Stars Under-21 Silver Tour Championship in Wiltshire. He defeated Jersey-based Archie Griefer 2-1 in the final at Jester's Snooker Club, Swindon. Noah said, "It was a hard game. I've been playing well lately. Lots of practice is helping." After topping his four-man round robin, Noah beat Londoner Dylan Denieff 2-0 in the last 8 and Lennell Savage Southampton by the same score in the semi-final. Retiring professional Joe Perry played an exhibition frame against Noah before presenting the trophies. Joe knocked in 107 break and won 131-0. The teenager coach Tim Dunkley said, "We've got to go a long way to find someone who works harder than him on the practice table. We sit down together on September and set 7 targets for the following 12 months. Winning a silver tournament was one of them."
Charlotte toughs it out in Olympics of trail running. An Ireland runner has secured a podium finish in one of the world's toughest races. Charlotte Fisher, an ultra runner, finished third in the Ultra Trail Snowdonia UTS 100-mile race in Wales. This achievement has earned her an elite athlete entry into the Ultra Trail du Mont, which is UTMB, often referred to as the Olympics of trail running. The UTS range is known for its challenging terrain with more than 10,000 metres of elevation gain. Charlotte battled the difficult course, high temperatures and extreme physical distress to finish the race. She was unable to eat or drink for the latter half of the race. Charlotte's podium finishes contrasts from last year when she struggled to finish the race after being hospitalised with a serious illness just 10 days before. Her race last year was about survival and raising funds for Mountbatten. This year, Charlotte's podium finish was redemptive. She finished 13 hours faster than her 2024 time. Charlotte said, "This one means more than just a podium spot. It's a testament to grit, growth and the power of second chances, believing in myself and never giving up." Charlotte only started ultra running in February 2023 when she signed up for the Isle of Wight Ultra Challenge in memory of her late Aunt Jane. She won that event with just 12 weeks of training. Reflecting on the UTS 100-mile race, she said, "I may have been in hell, but it looked like heaven. I'm still in shock and beyond grateful. I'm often asked if I'd do UTMB, and if I was collecting my stones for the lottery, and my reply was always been, it's a dream race, but I'll only do UTMB when I get athlete entry. And somehow I've spoken my dreams into existence." With UTMB on the horizon for 2026, Charlotte looks ahead with renewed determination.
And now we move on to White Memories. Son's pride in parents' heroes. A retired engineer could well be the only living Isle of Wight resident whose parents were both awarded the MBE for their bravery and work during just after the Second World War. Don Webber of Bembridge, who spent most of his childhood in Malaya, is set to commemorate the 80th anniversary of VJ Day this summer and has shared his parents' stories of bravery in the Far East during conflicts. His parents, Donald and Patricia Webber, were rubber planters in colonial British Malaya during a time when the Japanese began advancing into the peninsula before the war broke out. After hostilities in the Far East began against Japan, Don's father joined the Malay regiment as a second lieutenant, but was captured at the fall of Singapore in 1942. He became a British prisoner of war on the infamous Burma-Thailand Railway, nicknamed the Death Railway, at Naikum Naok camp in Thailand between November 1942 and August 1945. His mother, an ex-nurse, managed to escape with 6-month-old sister Anna on one of the last ships to leave Singapore before its fall, ironically named the Empress of Japan. The ship, bound for Liverpool, was targeted by Japanese bombers, but somehow managed to evade being sunk. Both Donald and Patricia received the MBE after the war. Don said, "My father, emaciated during his time in the prisoner of war camp, was reunited with my mother when war ended. He weighed only 5 stone when he got back to England. It took him months to recover." Despite the grim, harsh conditions, Don's father bravely managed to run a secret radio in the POW camp, which he used to keep fellow prisoners informed of the news. Don added, "With my Uncle Max, an intelligence officer, they ran a secret radio. It was beheading offence if caught." But sharing news gave fellow prisoners a feeling of morale. Bits and pieces of radio were found on their marches up to the POW camp, which were carefully secreted away in a water bottle. In a recording held by the National War Museum, Don's father spoke of his actions in the camp. He said, "After 2 or 3 days, we got the radio going, and from then on, Max and I distributed the news throughout the camp and all others along the railway. In all, we managed to produce 703 news bulletins, but security had to be better than better. The Japanese were very strict on searches." His father was awarded the MBE in 1946 from King George VI for his bravery during the war. After the war ended, Don's parents returned to Malaya to continue their work on a rubber plantation, with his father managing the estate for British Company Guthrie's.
Don's mother also received the honour in 1953 in recognition of her public service in Malaya. Patricia was on Queen Elizabeth II's first birthday honours list after her coronation. She was known for her cheerfulness and in her helping the locals on the estate. Being an ex-nurse, she would dress wounds, said Don. She worked for the police while the Malaya emergency was going on. The family lived near the jungle, close to where the communist insurgents were active and murdering people during the Malaya emergency uprising in 1948. Rubber plantations and police stations were targeted during that time, bringing Don's parents right into the firing line. Donald said, "My mother was attacked twice. On both occasions, while being transported in a car, she was shot at, but survived both attempts uninjured." Don spent his childhood in Malaya until 1960 before moving to the Isle of Wight 25 years ago. When he was aged 16, Don joined the Army's Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers as an apprentice in electronics. Don went on to teach electronics and spent 14 years in the Army, rising to the rank of Staff Sergeant. He spent his career in the UK, Germany and also Libya in the days before dictator Colonel Gaddafi came to power. Don went on to run a recruitment agency for electronics and computer engineers, then retired to the island. "I brought my wife Jill to the island to look at the place, and she fell in love with it," said Don. "I decided to take early retirement and make the move to Bembridge, where I've lived ever since." Jill died in 2016. Don plans to mark this year's VJ Day in remembrance of his parents' bravery in the Far East. VJ Day is celebrated nationally on Friday, August the 15th.
And now we move on to my view. My day in Parliament with the Isle of Wight MPs. This is from Alex Cooper. Going to Parliament to interview the island's 2 MPs was a big moment for me, and it hit home the importance of local news. Since my teens, I've been political obsessive, and I studied politics at the University of Manchester. Before I was a journalist, I was a poll clerk at the most recent election. On any given day, I read about what's happening in Whitehall, as the government's agenda and stories often have an impact regionally. When I found out my county press colleague Oliver Dyer and I were invited to Westminster, I knew it would be a monumental occasion in my career so far, and it didn't disappoint. I've picked up quite a lot of parliamentary insight, but as I was taken around, I got to know more and, best of all, see it for myself. We passed the rigorous security checks and were greeted by Richard Quigley, MP for the Isle of Wight West, on the other side of the glass. Richard showed us around his office, the galleries of the House of Commons, the House of Lords, and the corridor of cabinet members' offices, a remarkable amount of access. Despite being in the heart of government, we also bumped into Aubrey Alligretti outside the tea rooms, chief political correspondent at the Times, who showed us around the press corps area. Aubrey is a champion for student media, and I worked with him as part of the Student Publication Association, so it was a full circle moment to see him again. Parliament is so entwined with the drumbeat of day-to-day life in the UK, and being there in the flesh was incredibly familiar but also strangely elusive. Richard stressed to us that it's a workplace, but agreed the feeling of awe doesn't go away, likening it to Hogwarts and telling us about some of the more antiquated places on the estate. Afterwards, we were joined by East MP Joan Robertson in the terrace outside Stranger's Bar, where we recovered a wide breadth of topics that matter to islanders against the backdrop of the Thames. I'm still very new to journalism, and it was a privilege to be in the room where it happens, or in this case, the terrace where it happens. All my lectures and classics taught me that democracy works for those who show up and participate. Now I work for a trusted news source. I am actively part of the democratic process, communicating and distilling information to keep our readers informed. It's something that a classroom can't teach you, and at 21, it's an honour to be given this level of access. Ensuring that elected representatives and journalists have an open dialogue is so important. Thank you to both our MPs and their staff for welcoming us.
Imogen Chew writes, overall planning of road closures is a mess. Unless you've been living under a rock or stick exclusively to the south-east of the island, you have probably heard the drama surrounding the council's latest road closure. Horsebridge Hill, the main route between Newport and Cowes, has been closed in the Cowes direction for a few weeks. All traffic heading towards the seaside town has to follow a diversion, nearly double the length of the main road, up Forest Road and through the back way to Cowes. It's set to be this way until mid-July. Safe to say people are furious. Commuters and parents on the school run are spending hefty portions of their day in traffic. A Cowes Town councillor recently wrote to this newspaper that he had been inundated with complaints. And as a Cowes resident myself, I'm feeling the impact, although I admit I don't have to commute and can avoid rush hour traffic most days. In general though, I'm not furious about the scheme. We need new social housing, and a large housing development on the outskirts of Newport for workers, a stone's throw from the hospital and the prison, is worth the disruption. It will provide 131 houses and 72 flats for the council's housing register and key workers, and £30 million worth of government funding means the entire estate will be socially rented or available for lower than market value. It's needed. Community Facebook groups are full of posts from people looking for housing, whether social or to rent, and more houses typically equals lower house prices and rental costs for islanders. We need the housing, so we need the work, and that goes with it. And I think most people understand this. Councillor Jock Rafferty said that the complaints were mainly about the council's handling of the scheme and the lack of information rather than the diversion itself. This would definitely help, but I think there's something bigger than the council and Island Roads need to work on to win people over. The overall planning towards road closures is a mess. Rue Street, the road that links the diversion with Gurnard, was closed for the first week or so of the diversion, forcing extra traffic into one of the bottlenecks already full of diverted traffic. Woodvale Road and Solent View Road have been closed for months, completely unnecessarily. Island Roads and Southern Water never agreed on key aspects of the project before getting started, so it's been abandoned, and the road is still closed. At multiple points around Cowes at the moment, there are 2 different diversion signs at junctions, pointing in opposite directions. People understand the need for works, they understand the need for housing, and they understand that sometimes they will be inconvenienced by it. But when these times roll around, as they have done with Horsebridge Hill, islanders are going to find it a lot harder to be understanding when their patience has already been so tested, sometimes completely unnecessarily.
And now we have some what's on for you. Big names for match. Ventnor are celebrating their 175th anniversary with a T20 match against Hampshire. The prestigious match will take place on June the 4th at Steep Hill, with Hampshire including a core group of first-team players despite their busy schedule of Rothesay County Championship and Vitality Blast commitments. Shortlisted to appear in the squad, Captain Ben Brown, Kyle Abbott, Mark Stoneman, Nick Gubbins, Fletcher Middleton and Felix Organ will demonstrate their support for the commemorative fixture, a gesture appreciated by Ventnor. The team will be managed by former Ventnor captain Charlie Freesden, now head of player development at the Utility Bowl. The match starts at 3 p.m. with free entry to the public. Spectators are able to enjoy a licensed bar and hot food from 2 p.m. Ventnor Cricket Club thanked club president Graham Benson and his wife Christine for their sponsorship of the game.
A-listers for Literary Festival. Beloved broadcasters, comedians and writers will appear at the Isle of Wight Literary Festival 2025. The event, running from Thursday, October the 9th to Sunday, October the 12th, will feature former British ladies #1 tennis player and former A Question of Sport host Sue Barker, Great British Bake Off judge Dame Prue Leith, and designer Kath Kidson. Also joining the Island events lineup is comedian Helen Lederer, John Suchet, Giles Brandreth, Joanne Harris, Sir Graham Brady, Helen McKinn and former Island MP Bob Seeley. The event, now in its 14th year, will be based at Northwood House, with St Mary's Church, Cowes Enterprise College, the Royal Yacht Squadron and Island Sailing Club also being used as venues. Tickets for the festival will be available in August once timings for the event are confirmed. Isle of Wight Literary Festival Chair Maggie Ankers said, The programme is already chock-a-block full of literary delights, and we know there is something for everybody during the event. In the 14 years the festival has been running, we have brought some top names to the Isle of Wight, and the reputation of our festival continues to grow in the literary world. We hope that there is something for people of all ages, and we're particularly proud of the growth of the education and local author programmes. The festival will also run the schools programme, which reached 28 island schools last year. The programme encouraging reading and storytelling, with authors visiting primary and secondary schools to give assemblies and workshops. The drive is offered at no cost to schools. Local author initiative Write on Wight will return after a successful debut at the Cows event last year. Writers from the island are invited to apply to take part in the festival from the end of May via the festival website. The festival's food-based branch, Litfest, will also return for the third year. The festival is a registered charity.
And Celebration of Engineering Classics, a free community event celebrating classic car and boat design, is set to take place on Sunday. Cowes Classic Day, organised by the Royal London Yacht Club, will be held on the parade in Cowes. The event will feature more than 60 vintage cars, including Daimlers, Aston Martins, Rolls-Royces, Jaguars, Bentleys, Morris Minors and Triumphs. The owners will be on hand to talk about their vehicles. The day will also feature historic motor vessels and yachts moored at Trinity Landing, including the gentleman's motor yacht Lilian, designed by C.G. Pettersson and built in Stockholm in 1916. Steam Pinnace number 199 from the National Museum of the Royal Navy will be giving demonstrations on Saturday and Sunday. Visitors can enjoy a performance by the Boogie Woogie Bluebirds 1940s trio at 12 p.m, a Spitfire display at 1:30 p.m, and refreshments from the garden, Plaza Ice Cream and Honey's Donuts. Julia Pettit, event chair, said, "We're looking forward to welcoming everyone to the parade. So more information, visit cowesclassicsregatta.org."
And now we move on to letters. Peter Sheave, the Isle of Wight National Education Union, writes, "Teachers' pay is not enough. Government have moved their initial recommendation of a 2.8% pay rise to 4%. We acknowledge improvement, but the pay award is still not fully funded. Some island schools have already planned staff cuts for the coming September. At the Island NEU AGM, staff approached me to raise real concerns about safeguarding from September, when some support staff places disappear. Any cuts will mean less support for children and young people from already overstretched staff. Children deserved a fully resourced education. Government should see education as an investment in the future, not as a cost. There are no routine efficiencies to be made at school level, only wastage impacting at a system level caused by the fragmentation of the education system. Last year, an Island Schools Forum paper showed 2023-2024 maintained school balances. 22 out of 41 schools in 2023-24 spent more than they received. 9 out of 41 schools had an overall ongoing deficit. We await 2024-25 figures. 1% of the pay rise for both teachers and support staff is supposed to be covered by productivity gains and smarter spending. Thus, substantial financial pressures remain for 2025-26, made worse by government failure to fully fund pay rises. During the 2024 parliamentary election, the then Labour candidate Richard Quigley said, We are not giving every child a chance due to underfunding from the current government. To be untrue today, government must commit to fully fund this pay rise.
And Dr. Charles M. Lansley of Shanklin declares this unacceptable. Dear Red Funnel CEO, having repeated ferry breakdowns and cancellations is one thing, but having a ferry cancellation because the ferry won't start over a bank holiday weekend and being told the delay will be 3 hours is another. You need to resign and hand over the leadership to someone who is competent to run the business. There are no excuses.
Nita Pragnell from Ryde writes, nightmare. Read your article about every deliveries, which was in the County Press 23rd of May 25. Luckily, I haven't, as yet, had a problem with deliveries, but trying to return items that weren't wanted. Absolute nightmare. I had a parcel to return. I booked for someone to collect it, said it would be the following day. That didn't happen. 3 times I requested for someone to pick up the parcel. 3 times I was told it would be the following day. It never happened. I then phoned the company to where it had to be returned. They booked a time. It still didn't happen. Once again I phoned the company. They again arranged for a pickup. Never happened. Luckily we had friends over from the mainland, and when they returned home I asked them if they'd take the parcel and drop it off at a pickup point. It would be very useful to have some shops on the island that did this, which they kindly did. Otherwise the parcel would still be here now and I'd be paying for something I didn't want.
School installs community defibrillator. St Blasius Primary School has had a defibrillator installed for the use of the wider community. Thanks have gone to the school council, who worked with Assistant Principal Gemma Powell to make it happen. Gemma said, "We were really pleased to welcome Steve Reed from the Isle of Wight Defibrillators charity to install a community defibrillator for our local area. This is amazing news, and we are hugely appreciative that we are able to support this. Steve will also be returning to teach the children what defibrillators are and how they can help to save lives. If anyone local needs to use the defibrillator, it is at the school at Albert Road in Shanklin." Well, with that, Imelda says goodbye and good wishes to you all.
And it's a goodbye from Jerry too. The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Now, my job's been made easier today. My guests have all introduced themselves.
Hello, my name is Sydney, with a Y in the middle like the city. If you need help remembering it, please just think of me as No Eyes by Name, No Eyes by Nature.
My name's Jake, I'm from Newcastle. Thing you need to know about me is that I'm a disabled man. I'm partially blind, or partially sighted, depending on your outlook on life. So I'm partially blind. My glasses are always half empty.
All the way to the stage, Lizzie Lenko.
I am not advocating for the use of recreational drugs. So now when people ask me, what's your eyesight like, I can quite confidently say LSD. They gave me a white stick to stop me tripping. I had to go blind to tell that joke.
So, just in case you're in any doubt, Sydney May, Jake Donaldson and Lizzie Lenko have all got dodgy eyes, to one extent or another anyway, and they're all stand-up comedians and they embrace telling jokes about their disabilities, amongst other things. And that's what we wanted to discuss with you all today. The phenomenon of an increasing number of visually impaired comedians and the positives and the pitfalls of joking about blindness. First of all, I'll continue to be lazy today. Could we just get some mini biographies from you all? You know, who you are, how you got into comedy and why. Sydney, let me start with you.
Yeah, hello. I'm Sydney. I'm based down in Brighton. I got into comedy really just kind of for fun. I joined a course with a friend in 2020, just before lockdown happened, and then lockdown happened, so we never finished the course. And then I got back into it just at the end of 2023. Had a great time on an ultra comedy course, raising money for charity. I kept saying then, if people stop laughing, I'll stop doing it. But they're still laughing, so I'm still here.
So you're another thing we can blame lockdown for, are you?
Yeah, pretty much. Sorry about that.
Let me go to Jake Donaldson. How did you get into this?
Yeah, so I started stand-up for the first time when I was at university over sort of 10 years ago, and I was just a big fan of comedy growing up, so just always wanted to do it. I just did it for fun for a while, and then after the pandemic, again, I was influenced by the pandemic as well, and it sort of gave me the kick up the bum to sort of try and do it properly, and then now I get paid for it, and it's my job, and it's very exciting.
Great. And Lizzie, what about you? I mean, you had a serious car accident which kind of had an effect on you getting into it, didn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, weirdly, my background, I'm an archaeologist, work in culture and heritage policy, and I just started doing comedy just for something less boring than being a policy analyst. And when I was in quite a serious car crash, the head injury has affected my sight. And so comedy became a massive part of my recovery strategy.
Right. Well, we'll analyse this a bit. And this is a question for all of you. Could you ever go on stage without reference to your eyesight or the lack of it? I'm going to start with you, Sydney, because in the gig from which we took a clip at the top of the programme, you started your act by facing in the wrong direction.
Look at you all. How lovely you look. All right, have you had long enough to look at my arse now? Can I turn round? Is that okay?
Do you always do that?
So I did that when I first started, and I hated it. It made me cringe.
Who told you to do it?
Come on. Some of the people I was on the course with, they were like, do you know what would be really funny? I found it so cringy and so cheesy because I was like, oh, come on, guys, I would never make that mistake. Give me some credit. But it just goes down so well. And I did it when I first started gigging, and then I dropped it, and then everyone was like, come on, bring it back. And so that gig that video's from, that was the performance where I won the Comedia Award, and I brought it back for that, and it works, and now I feel like I can't take it out again.
Jake, am I right in thinking you could get away without referring to your partial blindness, couldn't you? I mean,
yeah.
And do you ever do that?
Yeah, so I am partially sighted is how I describe it, really. And so I can sort of pass for having enough vision to get around sometimes, depending on the lighting in the room and things like that. And if I'm going onto a stage, I check where the front of the stage is at first before I go on stage, normally with my cane. So like for a long time, I didn't really talk about it because I was uncomfortable discussing my disability on stage. And I've lost my sight over a period of time, and sort of for a long time didn't want to admit that I was disabled. I felt some sort of shame to do with that because my dad is disabled as well, and he had a brain hemorrhage in his early 20s, and I saw sort of how he behaved and how people treated him, and I didn't want to believe that was what my life was going to be like, so I didn't talk about it on stage for a really long time.
So what made you change your mind about that?
I started talking about it after I started going to the hospital for some more tests to do with my eyes, and some funny things happened at the hospital, and I started telling the stories about them on stage. And then also when I started having to use a cane and stuff like that, it became obvious that I had to mention it, and so I decided to write a whole show about it. And I wrote a whole Edinburgh Fringe show all about my sight loss journey, and I performed that at the festival, and it did really well, and people really seemed to like it, and other visually impaired people came to see it, which was brilliant. But I don't always talk about it on stage, and it's not necessarily the only thing I talk about on stage either.
I thought I'd heard most blind jokes, but I hadn't heard the glass half empty joke. I do like that.
Thank you.
Lizzie, you began comedy mainly after your accident. I think you've done a bit before, as you explained to us. What was it about disability? Was it always going to be your main theme after the accident?
Yeah, I mean, I can't avoid it because it's sort of the elephant in the room. When I do get out of my chair and get onto the stage, it takes me a while. And at first, when I first started doing the comedy, I was still wobbly. I'm often performing longer than 10 minutes. I stay in my wheelchair. So people are looking at it, they can see it. If you don't reference it, they're not listening to you. So I discovered that get the joke about the white stick out up front, or get the joke about the wheelchair out up front, then we can move on. I have genuinely had people think the white stick's a prop, though.
Yeah, I've had that as well, Lizzie. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
The guy took it off me. This was at Cheltenham at the races. He took the stick off me and said, "You're not really blind. How many fingers are you holding up?" And I'm like, "Mate, if you can't count your own fingers, you've no business betting on the horses."
So I'll stay with you, Lizzie, for this, but it will come to all of you. Are there rules about the way you approach blindness jokes or disability jokes? But I mean, we are in touch, so let's stick to blindness. Are there themes you wouldn't touch, for instance?
I suppose my benchmark is it happened to me. I once had the privilege of meeting Chris Morris, and I asked him, how dark can I go with this? And he said, if it's real life and it's your experience, then you talk about it. But what I won't do is kind of try and talk on behalf of anyone else in my comedy. I write very much from my own experience. A lot of my comedy comes from the reactions of other people to me. And I think that's why it resonates so well with other people with disabilities. They've had those experiences too.
So, Sydney, who can tell a blind joke then? I mean, is it a truism that sighted people shouldn't tell blind jokes?
It's got to be carefully done, I think. You know, I wouldn't make jokes about wheelchair users because I'm not one. I think stick to your own experience, your own disability. And I think sighted people can make jokes about blind people.
And they do, of course.
And they do, and that's fine. And I guess it's about how it's done. Something you say in comedy is about never punching down. And I think that's a good...
I was in a pub once and a guy came in who I think had seen me around. He came up to me and he said, have you heard about the blind man who bled to death trying to read his cheese grater? And I thought that was funny. I wasn't offended. Funny. It's a good joke.
It is.
It's not a brilliant joke, but, you know... Jake, you haven't had a say on this. I mean, what's your take on it?
Well, I sort of agree. I think most visually impaired comedians would kind of agree that I think if the sighted person is making a joke about blindness and it's about blindness as a phenomenon rather than about blind people, potentially maybe that's okay. But if it's punching down at people, making fun of the fact that they are disabled, that doesn't sit right with me. I've had compares bring me onto the stage by doing jokes about my eyesight before I've even had a chance to go on stage and explain that I'm visually impaired. So that sort of bothers me a bit more.
How worried are you? You're talking there about whether you take offence. How worried are you about offending people? I mean, we could be offending people now. And it is a fact that when we get mail on In Touch about certain programmes causing offence about the way in which we've dealt with blindness, it's usually not from blind people, but from sighted people feeling indignant on our behalf. Now, I'm inclined to resist that. Sydney, was that a grunt of agreement? Or?
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm sure people who get offended will probably be sighted people rather than blind people. I think for me, it's just so important to be able to have humour. And this is how I was brought up, and I'm very grateful to my family who, you know, took the relentless mick out of me throughout my whole childhood. And I was taught to laugh at it because that is so much better than being bitter or angry or upset by the fact that you have this disability. Funny things happen. It's not like I'm doing comedy to teach people a lesson, but if it also happens to teach people a bit of a lesson of please laugh, it is okay to laugh, I'm okay with it. You know, if I'm telling you the jokes, I'm all right with you laughing. But I think sighted, particularly family members, can be... I made a joke last year about the ridiculousness of having an eye infection when you got prosthetic eyes. And my dad didn't like it. He didn't like the fact that I had the surgery and had the eyes removed, and that was kind of removing the last vestige of hope of anything getting better.
Yeah. Right.
It's his issue.
So being offended on your behalf, as we were saying. Lizzie, you deal with, because of what happened to you, a number of disabilities. So does that make it harder to be sure, what's going to offend who?
Yeah, I mean, I tread a very fine line with my comedy, remembering that people are having a night out. Sometimes I have to remember not to be too graphic. And I think one of my biggest challenges is how I got this way and how you tell that story. So I have a line about parking my car upside down, and that pretty much does the job. I have had feedback where people have said it can be a little bit difficult to laugh because what they're thinking is, oh my God, what has she been through? I think it's the same for anyone making jokes about a disability, is just how much you reveal whilst also remembering this is entertainment. You've still got to make people laugh. They've still got to have a good time.
Why do you think, all of you, why do you think there seems to be a bit of a wave of visually impaired comedians? I mean, it used to...
I blame McCausland.
Well, I was just going to say, it used to be Chris McCausland, and you get the point. What's going on, Jake?
I went to the hospital about a year ago or so to see my doctor, and then I went in to see my ECLO, who's been really great.
They're eye care liaison officers, if anyone doesn't know. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, yes. And my ECLO sort of asked me what I did for a living, and I said, I was a comedian. And he went, it must be really hard to find opportunities as a visually impaired comedian. And then 2 seconds later, he handed me a brochure for some magnifiers, and it had a picture of Chris McCausland on the front of it. Yeah, I think him winning Strictly has been a big sort of boon to the visually impaired community. Although also, part of me does feel like we've been using not being able to see very well as an excuse for being rubbish at stuff for ages. And what am I supposed to do now, Chris? Try my actual best. All right, mate.
Part of me is like, we can't top that now, can we?
It's tricky.
I should say I love Chris. I think he's brilliant.
He's been great on this programme, and he'd understand this conversation. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He would absolutely understand it. Any other reasons, do you think, Sydney or Lizzie, about why there are so many now? Because I'm sure you didn't do it, any of you, with Chris as an inspiration.
I think the thing is, it's funny. And this is the thing you realise, for me, it was literally, I left my house at 6 o'clock on a Sunday evening. By 8 o'clock, I was in intensive care. And then you've got to deal with this completely new world. But the actual process of being, believe it or not, in a trauma centre, my entire show, Full Frontal Lobe, was about that experience. And it's hilarious. The medical profession is hilarious. I do a whole section of audience work asking people about their bowels. Because they do, that's the first thing you get asked. Like, you ever watch telly, somebody coming out of coma? It's not like Kill Bill. It's literally somebody saying to you, have you opened your bowels today? I'm like, I've just woken up, hang on. And I think one of the reasons maybe that you're seeing more and more of that kind of comedy is that also it's incredibly relatable, believe it or not, because most people have been through something a bit scary. And that's what they're tapping into, not the scary thing, but that you came out the other side able to laugh and joke about it. I think that's why it's become more popular.
Well, you're going to hate me for this, but I mean, have you got a favourite blind joke that you tell? Jake, I do like the glasses half full, as I said, but is there a joke that you particularly like?
I mean, that's my opening line that I do on stage now, because I think it sort of, it gets it out of the way quite quickly, but it tells you what I'm going to be like. I'm going to be doing sort of slightly kind of offbeat, maybe what other people call clever jokes sometimes, and like wordplay type stuff, and so I really like that kind of thing. The rest of my material is quite long-winded and storytelling-ish, so I'm trying to think of something that
they're
I've got
tricky, aren't they? You can't. Yes. While you're thinking, what about you, Sydney? Have you got a favourite one that perhaps we haven't heard?
Well, I'm very similar. I do a couple of little opening puns, and then I am more of a storyteller. But my opening line when I introduced myself, just after where you stopped the last video, the No Eyes by Name, No Eyes by Nature, is I'm against paninis on principle because I refuse to eat something with more eyes than me. The other one that I came up with really last minute, just popped into my head before my first gig, and now I don't know if it's my favourite, but it's the one that gets the biggest laugh. That was, people are usually really helpful to me when they realise I can't see, but I do find myself in a constant state of disappointment when I say I need a little bit of help looking for the ladies and all I get is a toilet.
And Lizzie, favourite one, maybe?
I think my favourite bit is the bit where I do my set about people's reactions to the white stick. And it's a true story that I was on Manchester Station and a woman fell over my white stick. And while she was shouting at me, I offered it to her.
Right, well, that is going to need a lot of living up to. I'm going to throw my hat into the ring here because I have one of my own. Here we go. Things are very different, actually, for us blind people now because all our machines talk to us. My daughter came home the other night, bit the worse for wear, tries to be quiet, woof! Walks into the microwave. It's 2:45. And then they all start. Microwave follows up with, what do you call this time of night? You've got a talking measuring jug, and it says, it's the third time this week she's been out. The other night she tried to fill me up with vodka. I was forced into playing that by my producer because actually it was for comic relief. They pitted presenters against each other. And I won, of course, because you can't go wrong with a blind joke.
No. It's very good, well done.
Well, thank you,
Really
Jack.
good.
I might take it up, but don't worry, I'm not coming for your jobs. That is it for today. We'd love to hear listeners' reactions and comments. Email in touch at bbc.co.uk. Leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. And we'd welcome your favourite blind joke or your reasons for never telling them. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings, and from Sydney, Jake and Lizzie, thanks again. Goodbye.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Cheers, bye.
Scaffolding and skips news. W working best 30th of May 2025.
Newport area. Guildhall Quayside in Quay Street. Cafe Isola, St James's Street. Man in the Moon, 16 to 17 St James's Street. And 10 Drill Hall Road.
Ride area. Aspire 35 to 36 High Street. 2 Union Street, 37 High Street. And ride area skips, The Lodge, Fairy Road, Seaview.
Ventnor area. Tinto's, 24 Pierce Street, 1 Pierview Esplanade, and 28 South Street.
And Sandown area, the Montpellier Hotel, 5 Pierce Street, 3 Fort Street, 77 High Street.
Cowes area, 9 Carville Lane, and Cowes area skips, 48 Beckford Road.